I would love for you to walk us through your journey of first becoming a freelance medical writer.
Well, I think I started much earlier than I even realized I did. It wasn't until I looked back and thought, oh, I've been doing this for a long time. A lot of people fall into it that way. They don't really realize that medical writing is even a thing. Like you, for example, you
Yeah.
already had your YouTube channel and you were doing a bunch of stuff. And I was like, this is all related, like this
Yeah.
can all be part of your business. So for me, I was working in healthcare initially. And one of my favorite parts was like creating resources for my patients. I was working as a dietitian, so I would have all these like Filofax pages that I made with reference guides of all the different drug dosages and like different ways of treating different conditions and like diagnostics and stuff like that. And I found myself like really enjoying creating those and wanting to give them to my colleagues. And I wanted to make handouts for my patients. And every time I had to do an educational session, like a workshop or something interactive where I could get in front of people and like teach them stuff, I really enjoyed that. So then when I finished my healthcare education and I started working in a hospital, I was like, no, this is not for me. I don't like it. What the heck am I doing? How
Yeah.
did I end up here? And then I kind of came back to my writing abilities and how much I enjoyed that. And I thought, I wonder if I could do this for someone else, like as a thing. So I just reached out to a company who was educating other nutrition professionals, and they had courses and they had a blog and they had all this stuff going on. And I was like, I could write for them. So I
Yeah.
pitched myself and I said, I can do a couple of pieces voluntarily just to show you what I can do. And if you are happy with that, like I could come join your team. And it worked. And they gave me a bunch of training and like I was on a very low starting rate. But I stayed with them for a while and it kind of gave me a taste of the lifestyle that I could have just working
Hmm.
remotely and doing and that. So I was getting into creating course material for them and doing a lot of literature reviews and creating all these graphics and stuff. And it was great. It wasn't until I emigrated to Canada that I really decided to step up my game and
Mm.
actually think of it as a business and build out my client base and start expanding into other areas and also to earn a lot more. So that was when I started to network and I started to think, okay, how can I really scale this thing and make it sustainable for me? Because that first company was refusing to pay me more. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm just burning out with this one
Hmm.
client. So what I did was I actually, I spoke to a lot of people. I did informational interviews. I tried to figure out how everything worked in Canada. I had to learn the healthcare system. And I was speaking to some people in advertising, and there was kind of like this avenue where you could come with a healthcare background and say, I'm a copywriter specializing in healthcare. And I thought, oh, I'm a healthcare person. Like I've got a lot of knowledge and skills that I could bring to the table. So I actually applied for a full-time position at the ad agency. And I said, yeah, I specialize in healthcare. And so I was able to go in at like a senior level because
Oh,
I
wow.
knew the value that I was bringing to that role,
Yeah.
even though I hadn't done copywriting before. But I
Mhm.
did have examples of my writing, and I understood what they were doing because I had spoken to people at the company and they said, we're not sure if we want to hire you like straight away, but we'll start you off on a freelance contract. And I was like, perfect, that's what I wanted. So I pretended that I wanted the full-time role, but I actually was just there for
You
the
didn't want.
freelancing.
Yeah.
And I thought I'll just meet as many people as I can and I'll kind of get my foot in the door.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's how it started for me. And so I kept in touch with some of the people and I just broke out and did my own thing after that. But it just gave me that confidence boost that, yeah, you can do this and
Yeah.
you have the skills that you need.
Yeah, and I love your story because your story is very relatable because I feel like you didn't come from like a fancy education or a fancy background. I feel like you did something that literally anybody can do,
Mm.
and to see how you were able to connect with multiple people, it really opened my eyes to just the opportunities out there. Because me coming as a pharmacist, I wasn't told about opportunities like medical writing, and connecting with you in Prospology really opened my eyes to just how many opportunities there are out there, like this abundantly. Not just for medical writing. I've took what I've learned and applied it to podcasting, DJing, and just a lot of other things. So it's really awesome hearing what you did. And another thing, I know you went from making, I think, 17 an hour, like working full time, to then making 10K a month to 15K a month. What has that success been like? And And then can you also describe your transition towards becoming a business coach and helping other freelance medical writers?
Yeah. Well, the biggest jump was the one I was speaking about where I went from like the 17 to the 75 and then
Mm,
75 to 85, 85 to 100. That
wow.
all happened like within a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Because while I was working at that first agency, I was talking to people about like what the standard rates are, and I was doing my
Mm,
research, and I was realizing that I can get more than what I'm currently getting. So I
yeah.
think I had started at like 55, and then I asked to go up to 75, and then I asked to go up to 100, and then they negotiated me down to 85. And that was just within a 3-week contract.
Wow.
So then when I left, I was like, okay, well, I know people are getting 100, so I'm going to charge 100. And that
Yeah.
was just how it was for me. So then all the sort of the pitching that I did in that stage, I started to look for companies who might need a writer, and I positioned myself as an
Hmm.
expert in the gut health realm because that's what I had done for a long time. And then I just started at that 100 rate. And then each time I got a new client, I just upped my rate. So I would go
Mm,
110, 120,
wow.
130, 140, 150. And it just kept going like that until I was just busy all the time. And so you realize that, you get more efficient over time. So your rate
Yes.
should be going up because
Yeah.
otherwise, like, what's the point? Then I transitioned more from charging hourly to charging per project. And that was when I started to see like the 10, 12, 15K months because
Mm,
I would just charge for an entire project and say, this is going to be 5,000 and this is going to be 6,000, and this is going to be 4,000. So it was much easier for me to know that the money was coming and just kind of focus on what I was doing, but also prospecting at the same time. So I feel like the biggest skill that I learned was to balance the marketing and the outreach side of things with
mm,
working on the clients that I already had, but then also constantly looking for that next opportunity where I could charge more and do more and challenge
mm.
myself more. So I was never in my comfort zone. I was always pushing for the next thing. And I would say that's kind of primarily what led to that growth. But in terms of why I started Prospology, I was getting a lot of messages from people on LinkedIn saying, how are you so busy? How are you getting all these
Yeah.
clients? How do you do this? And I kind of got a bit fed up of just like messaging people all the time and helping them. And I was like, you know
Yeah.
what? I should probably be paid for this. So, yeah, I started the coaching business pretty much the same time I started growing the writing business. And I just did them alongside each other for a while because I realized that whatever natural instincts were coming to me, other people were not getting them. And so
Yeah.
then I realized actually there's a lot of value here. So I'm going to give it to people. And that's how it started.
Yeah, like one thing that you mentioned that I think is very interesting is you talk about charging over 100 an hour. And I feel like with any service, it requires a lot of confidence to put yourself and make that claim like, hey, like this is what I'm worth. Especially as a woman, I might add too. I feel like it's not natural for a woman to want to be demanding of services and of the worth. So I'm kind of curious, like, what did that feel like to you being like, hey, like I can help you, but it's gonna cost this much, and saying that with confidence, because I feel like that's not something that a lot of people can do, and I don't see that commonly, and I feel like you help normalize that for me when I'm charging services for other things I intend to do. What's that been like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was not good at sales at first. I was very scared of doing them and I wasn't confident. And it was actually during the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, I hired a sales coach.
Yeah.
And I thought it was going to be all very tactical stuff. And there was a lot of tactical stuff, but it was actually much more about healing my relationship with myself
Mm,
because she was uncovering all these kind of traumas and things that I'd experienced in my past that were
mm,
affecting how I was viewing myself and
mm,
whether I was valuing myself. And I had no idea that all of this was connected. I didn't know that this is what we were
mm.
going to be doing, but I just had a feeling like this person knows how to help me. And she herself had undergone a lot of traumas in her
Wow.
upbringing, and she really understood the struggles that I was going through. And really, it just came down to not valuing myself and not thinking that I deserved to have more. And
Hmm.
so a lot of the work that I did with her was on healing that. And then all of a sudden the sales just became so much easier. And then I could apply the tactical things because my mindset was in a different place. And so one of the things I've done with Prospology is I've made sure that the psychological and the mindset aspects of business are
Yeah.
integrated with the tactical things, because
Yeah.
it's never just about the tactics. You
For
have to
sure.
look at who you are as a person, how you're showing up, how you're feeling,
For
and
sure.
how you are viewing everything and how you're viewing yourself. So for
Yeah.
me, the self-worth was the biggest piece, and that continues to be the biggest, if there's ever anything that prevents me from growing to my next level, that's what it is. So that's the work that I do on myself as well.
Yeah, I love the shift in identity. I feel like people treat you the way that you treat yourself. So whatever you
Yeah.
say you are, people will treat you like that. If I say I'm a podcaster, look, nah, I am. I got my mic, I got everything. Now people are treating me as a podcaster, and I love that for you. And you mentioned you had traumas and upbringings that you went through that were difficult for you. Do you mind sharing what were some of those traumas that you had that were difficult for you, and also what was the work that you took to get the confidence to be who you are and start leading other people, specifically freelance medical providers, yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that my parents were abusive, and
Okay.
that's kind of the high level version. My dad had a lot of anger issues, and there was a lot of like physical abuse and psychological abuse. And he would never apologize for anything
Wow.
if he had spoken out of line. There was a lot of like put downs and like being told that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't getting good enough results. So I was always being pushed to do more and feeling like I had to earn the love. And so that
Hmm.
translated into adulthood, just like doing all the things, thinking, oh, people will like me, people will accept me, I'll be successful if I just keep doing more. But
Yeah.
that's really missing the point. It wasn't ever about that. My mom was very manipulative. She was
Wow.
not authentic as a person. She had a business, but it was all about just like keeping up appearances and making it seem like everything was good, even if
Yeah.
it wasn't. And I saw like the reality, and then I saw the version that she portrayed to everyone else, and
Yeah.
I didn't vibe with that. I was like, no, I want to tell the truth. And so I kind of came out of that being very, very honest and authentic, and
Yeah.
also very insecure and not confident at all in my
Yeah.
abilities. And it was through doing a lot of therapy, coaching, and all this work on myself that I realized, I am good enough as who I am. They just didn't appreciate it, but that doesn't mean that I'm not of value and I'm not a good person. And so I think coaching came very naturally to me because I've always been quite nurturing and I'm very empathetic, and I
Yeah.
I I really resonate and I understand people's pain and people's worries and people's
Yeah.
fears, and I really want to help alleviate that because I had so much of that when I was growing up. And I know how hard it is when you don't feel like you have enough support around you. And I feel like I would have become an entrepreneur much earlier on if I had had support from either my friends, my
Mm.
family, my partner. And I actually had to leave a long-term relationship that otherwise
Oh.
was very good,
Wow.
purely because he didn't think that I had the capacity to be successful in entrepreneurship.
Wow.
And I knew that was going to hold me back forever. So I had to walk away from that. And it was devastating. And it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do, which resulted in me having to become a nanny and a housekeeper again for a while
Oh.
until I could get back on my feet. But it was one of the best things I did for myself, because when you surround yourself with people who don't believe in you, you don't believe in yourself anymore.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
really crushes your creativity and your confidence. Whereas the person that I'm with now, he's so supportive and he knows that I can do anything I put my mind to. And he's
Yeah.
really interested to get into like the strategies and the things I have going on. And he supports me emotionally, and he'll help me like set up my Google Analytics,
Yeah.
and like he'll get in the weeds with me because he wants me to succeed. And it's such a
Yeah.
different feeling. And so I think, combined with like wanting to help people and like also wanting to kind of give back, because I learned so much from all of my coaches and mentors, combined with realizing that my empathy and my ability to help people is so much stronger because of the trauma that I personally went through. It's all kind of come together to become my purpose.
When you talked about being empathetic, I remember when I was part of Prospology and I was working towards becoming a freelance medical writer, I did feel your empathy. And I think you did a great job of personalizing your services towards each person so that they can flourish as human beings, which I really appreciated. And I thank you for sharing your story. I feel like a lot of people go through some form of trauma, but we don't know how to grow from it. And so I like to have people share those stories because I think it just makes it a lot more relatable.